As we wrap up an incredible Maximo Live 2025, it's time for our closing plenary session. Please welcome Andrew O'Connors, a leader passionate about using data to drive smarter asset management decisions. With more than 20 years of experience across the power, transport, military, nuclear, mining, and public service sectors, Andrew is recognised by Engineers Australia as both an engineering fellow and engineering executive. He holds a PhD in reliability and risk, is a Certified Asset Management Assessor, and has authored a book on statistical modelling of asset systems. After co-founding 2 award-winning engineering businesses, including winners of the Telstra Business Awards and BRW Fast 100, Andrew now leads as a partner in KPMG's engineering and asset management practice. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Andrew O'Connors, delivering our closing plenary for Maximo Live 2025.
Testing. Great. Thanks for the intro, and hopefully it gave enough time for everyone to return for the end of what has been an absolutely fantastic couple of days. So I just want to say that I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and to take the last moment of the day to get you excited about asset management. And it's because I easily get excited about a lot of things, but this is one of my favourite topics, so thanks for letting me share with you. But as the intro said, my name's Andrew O'Connors. I'm a partner at KPMG and I lead our national engineering and asset management practice. So I wanted to start today with a story, and that comes from the 15 years that I spent in the Army as an asset manager, where one of the roles that I had was to support the Special Forces and Commandos in Tarin Kowt over in Afghanistan, just making sure that they had the right equipment they needed in an operational context. And what I mean by that is that the things that we would do in operations were often at odds to the engineering that we would do in Australia. And one of those tensions that formed was actually the modifications, apart from the fuel jerrys in front of the headlights and many other modifications. One of the tensions we had was actually we changed the seating design so that you're in a better firing position, but in doing so, we removed the seat belts from the vehicle. That resulted in the engineers, the fleet managers in Australia could not endorse those engineering changes because it didn't comply to the Australian design rules, which many here would know is what you need to be able to drive a vehicle on the road in Australia. So in May 2006, there was the team on one of these vehicles was on patrol, and they hit an improvised explosive device which detonated underneath the engine. And everyone in the vehicle was thrown clear of the vehicle. Many of them were covered with engine oil. And the most serious injury was that the driver broke his ankle when it got caught on the handbrake lever as he got thrown. And we never really know for sure with all these things. It's obviously a risk assessment and, it's a judgment call often when you're on these types of things. But according to the operators, they really did feel like not having those seat belts and the modifications that were done to the seats actually saved their lives. So apart from the prompt from someone in the room to say, you better have an interesting story to kick this thing off, it was really around the idea that, what was significant about this experience was just the reminder that what we do in asset management, and I could have done an RCM type intro that came up with the same conclusion, but it's really that what we do is really contextualised and the decisions that we make really change in that different context. And so I wanted to talk about, as an industry and in the roles that we have every day, what are those things that are changing? And I wanted to do that by, there's a lot that's changing, and you've probably gathered that from the amazing speakers that we've had over the last 2 days. But I probably wanted to focus on 4 things that hopefully give a different perspective and contextualise some of the discussions. And that's really around that the assets that we manage are changing, that the value framework that we make decisions in is changing, that the decision support tools that we have access to are changing, and I put in brackets AI, By the way, these topics were a little bit informed by some discussions that I had, and I had to start saying, except for AI, what do you think the future of asset management looks like? But so I had to include it. And then I think one is really around our workforce, which I think, in the plenary yesterday, Kendra really said, what's our greatest asset? And the first thing we all said was our people. So I thought I'd finish with that. I'm also finishing with that because I do have an audience participation activity, which Dave Small challenged me with last night at 10 p.m, and we've been able to pull off. But in true, I'm not a technologist, I'll leave that up to IBM, we're actually going to run it live, a technology demo that we've never tested before, and we'll see how we go on that later. So the assets that we're managing are changing, and really, the one that's easy to talk about is around technology advancement, and the fact that technology advancement is happening at just absolutely unprecedented scale. And I'm actually going to go through this part pretty quick because I feel like if you went to a vendor or you talked to a futurist, they'd basically give you hours on this exact topic. And so, I think what we had yesterday with the Royal Melbourne Hospital was a fantastic example of, in order to continue to optimise the value we get from our assets, we're going to seek greater and greater resolution of the data. And I think there's no better example that I'm going to continue to talk about for the rest of my life as an asset manager, and that is the toilets in Royal Melbourne Hospital. And that is that we've moved from treating how we deal with toilets from a asset class view on the policies on how we clean it, right down to now we have a sensor that knows when that toilet needs to be cleaned. And I think we all resonated with that as soon as it was said and how simple it is. But if I go to the other side of that equation, and you can see the picture of the haul truck there, and that is that the mining industry obviously has been taking a journey around autonomous trucks, and there's a lot of things coming together around decarbonisation, safety pursuits, and also making autonomous and what they call humanless face or humanless mines in right now. The trick though is that that's a reality now, so that's not very futurist of me to talk about. But we did do some work with a large miner just recently around trying to set the vision for what asset management looks like for them in 10 years. And the vision they came to us with, which was really interesting, was that haul truck should detect when it needs maintenance, what the issues are with it. It should drive itself to the workshop. It should get its service and be repaired all automatically within the next 10 years. And I thought that was quite ambitious, actually. I think parts of that are absolutely the next step, and then other parts are ambitious. And I feel like what our role is as asset managers, and the experience that you have, is to bring the reality to some of that as well. And so I think you need to paint the vision so that we move towards it, but also bring the reality, which is anyone that's dealt with automation and fitted out sensors on equipment knows that you'll get 1,000 built-in test false positives that then has this asset at the maintenance team all the time. You can lose trust very quickly, and then you'll lose the momentum of the vision that you created. So it's really what is the emphasis of some of these events. But technology is improving quickly, we know that. But what's really interesting, and this chart is straight out of it's using the data off Wikipedia. So this is what we do. One of our team and I were talking about this, and it's really around how long has naval vessels been in service, and we correlated that against the year that they were introduced into service. And one thing that surprised me was that in 1960s, a lot of the ships that we had would only be in service for 10 years. In the 1990s, they're in service for 20 years, and for 2019, the planned dates for withdrawal for a lot of these assets mean that they're an asset that's been in service for over 40 years. And it's not that hard to paint that picture for you when you think of B-52s who are in Vietnam doing bombing raids, and there is no planned replacement for a B-52 right now. They're still planned to be in service in the US Air Force, as an example, for the next 40 years. So if I combine this insight with the previous insight, which is that technology is changing more than ever, I think it gives us a unique view on how we should think about asset management in the future, and in particular our assets and as platforms that then can house the digital transformation that we're going to continually need to update. So I wanted to move on to the value framework is changing. I hope that means something. It's kind of like asset manager talk, I guess. And really it's around how we make decisions. And I feel like it's becoming a lot more complex. So, and I've only got one slide for this, and it's me standing next to a pole. Our team actually has a WhatsApp group where all we do is share power poles with each other. So feel free to join it if you want to come on board. But this one is after I finished crossing the Simpson Desert with my daughter in a Land Rover that's now broken. That's another asset management story. But this one here, I got a photo in front of because A, it was quite old. It's in the middle of the outback. It looked like it definitely. I was going to send it to the utility and just say, hey, it wouldn't be bad to have another inspection on this one. But also, what really intrigued me about it, you can't see it in the photo, but it's actually that it's got two asset register numbers on it. So one's on a piece of tin that's all bashed into it, and you can just see a totally different number underneath it that was burnt into it, possibly 50 years ago. And I felt like, and I was saving it up for a course that I thought would be good. But I guess, whole of life is my first comment to say around how our framework of decision making is changing. And it's interesting because of these, I think there is lots of changes that are happening, but this one, you can really dial back to, things like the Asset Management Council for Australia used to be called MESA, which is the Maintenance Engineering Society, and now it's the Asset Management Council. We moved past 55, took us through a journey to take us out of the maintenance world and talk about asset value across the life cycle, right? So, that's been around for a while, but then when you think of the journey that we've taken, I would still say that almost every organisation that we work with has a separate function between capital delivery and operations and maintenance. And if you could really truly say who owns the function that the assets provide and forget about the asset, and who can truly make a trade-off and direct our capital works teams to change what they're delivering because it'll impact operations and maintenance, then you really have the litmus test to say whether you're at that point of whole of life. So, sustainability, I think that's pretty easy. We talked a little bit about it, I think, at the Plenary yesterday, but really, it's one of those things where you become the strategic corporal, I think, in your organisation. And what that looks like is we can talk about sustainability and the social licence to operate and the things that we're going to do on the ground, and it might involve things like needing to monitor how much fuel you use. You might have to have disposal plans completed before you'll even get the approval to create an asset. But what's happening in the industry is that your business's social licence to operate is completely dependent on the sustainability efforts that they have. And further to that social licence to operate extends to access to capital and finances, and they'll be audited on it. So when the Chief Sustainability Officer dives into the organisation and says, what are we doing in this space, they're probably going to knock on your door because you have the most information that will allow them to get finance to continue doing what your business does. Next one I'll talk about is resilience. Resilience is, I've found a really interesting journey over the last 5 years, and in particularly in regulated environments. And that really is that everyone recognises that things like climate is changing, and yet the ability to invest in it and the social licence really to invest in it may not be there based on what you might push up for a consumer price, as an example. And so what you end up with is you're recognising that the asset that you're going to build might be there for 70 years. And then you do the scenario planning against the IPCC scenarios. We're now at 2 degrees, is absolutely the minimum that we're going to achieve out of that. And if you do the climate modelling for that, there's some really scary numbers, and none of it looks like 5 years from now on a reg reset. Nothing justifies an investment in that time period. But if you look at 50 years, then it's completely different. And you've got wind clashes, you've got flooding, you've got a doubling of the amount of high temperature days that you have in a year. There's a 20% increase in the amount of high deluge days for flooding. So you think of that transformer or this pole that you're going to build, and you're really building this for the 70 years from now. The next part I'd say that links quite well into this is really around customer expectation. And if we think back to that, what I'm talking about with value and what we're here for, many of us are in industries that have direct links to customers. And I think that this is an extremely interesting area, and one of them that I'll link to resilience is around the expectation from the public that you as an asset manager may have a asset system that has been completely designed, approved, and you operate every day. But the environment around you is changing, and when that changes, it's on you to change how you manage your assets to meet the public expectation. And let me give you some examples of that, really, which is the PG&E wildfires in California, where I think it was 2009, I've forgotten the exact year, 2008 I think it might have been, but basically one of their electrical assets created a bushfire that then ended up killing over 80 people in the public. And work health and safety laws have responsible person obligations and many similar things to Australia. And the CEO and everyone in the chain of command actually got taken to court around the responsibility. Now that network, was it any different to the network that they built 20 years earlier that was approved by engineers, absolutely met the public expectation? It absolutely was. It was the same network, you know. What changed was the amount of high temperature days. Another one would be Ivanhoe Dam. The operators, got taken to court around end-cold, and that was really around, there was a lot of complexity in it, but one of them is around the modelling for rain days is continually changing, and Warragamba Dam in Sydney has just recently upgraded their risk models based on new flooding models, as an example. So you can see that just having your assets and approved system is not enough. Customers and the public expect more. There's other things as well that I think is interesting in this space, and that is around COVID and working from home has completely changed the value equation for how we think of your power, water and telecommunications into your home. It's now not just whether your kids watch Netflix and whether you have clean drinking water at night when you come home. It's now actually part of what runs the economy for Australia when you're working from home. So then I said I'd touch on artificial intelligence, and I'll do this reasonably quickly or with a different lens, hopefully, that you get something out of. But one of the things that KPMG has just completed, and you can download the report, it's a good read, is that we worked with UTS to do an analysis of over 48,000 people globally in 47 countries. And I've just grabbed one of the charts from this, but there's a lot of information there that's really interesting. But if I said that out of 47 countries, the amount of people using AI in Australia, we are the 8th lowest in the world, how would you feel about that? And then if I said that all of the highest adopters for AI are emerging countries and that they are very happy to take on AI and use it because it's a big leveler. You know, if you think of language barriers, you think of what they need to invest in to get access to AI and then use it, it's an amazing economic opportunity for emerging economies to participate in the on the global forum. So what I'd say around this, which I think is quite interesting, is really that, will your team pick up AI? And is Australians in general, and we think of ourselves as innovative and, tenacity, and we'll call it out, and anti-authoritarian and all these other things, but it's probably the opposite of what I would have predicted. I thought we would have been people that leant right into this, but it's the challenge you're going to have as a manager to really adopt AI in the future. So I just wanted to cover off on 4 quick topics for your role in AI, and I think we've probably had some really great presentations over the last 2 days on the opportunity, so it's definitely not around that. But it's probably just to say, your role in the bigger picture is really around these 4 topics, and some of them unique. The first one being trust in AI. We all live in that, and I would say, similar to some of the examples I gave before around, losing the trust for momentum on, operational technology, is that it can't be understated how important maintaining that trust is. To overcome the propensity for Australians not to get involved in AI or use it. And so I would say, part of your education, I think, is actually figuring out what is safe to fail and what isn't safe to fail. There are frameworks, and interestingly enough, ISO 42000 is a trust in AI international standard. And KPMG Australia was actually the first in the world to get certified against it. In fact, when the people were auditing us, they were getting certified to do the certifications into the future. So it's a topic that I mention only because I think it's something that people should do, and I can connect you in, not with our consulting team, but just with our internal team to say, what do they have to go through to get that done if you're interested. But the second topic I've got is causal relationships. It's a favourite topic because I did do some study on it as well. But it's the point of difference that you have in your organisation when we're talking about AI. And so, and what that means is that people talk about, if 1,000 people said, jump off a cliff, would you jump off a cliff? It's the conversation you have with your teenager. And the problem is that AI would, right? And so you end up with this idea of correlation. It doesn't know the direction of what causes what. It just knows that if this happens, the other thing happens close by to it, if that makes sense. And there's lots of ways, and this is a very active area of study. It still hasn't been solved, but deep neural networks and all these technologies do not give you a direction of causality. It's all, even when it looks like it is, it still isn't. It's just based on the fact that the causal direction is more common, which fakes you into it, right? And so you end up in these scenarios where those ships that I presented a little earlier, what if they had to do a mission down to Antarctica where they were going to operate in an environment they've never seen before, and you're using AI to then predict where my failures are going to come from? You need to know the causal relationship on the micro, fatigue looks like this, material science looks like this, etc. You need to know the directional causality in order to then manage your assets. And so, but then there's other things like, I think the Maximo RCM products as an example, where we've got the library, but we can also use AI to help us. Well, that's a helper for a human, but also you don't need the causality. What you're after is to try and prompt your thoughts. So your job as an asset manager is to be really able to understand the difference between safe to fail and not, and when you need to insert causality into the use of AI. And I feel like that will set you up. It'll allow you to go faster, but also maintain trust. The third one is around capturing the moment. So we get, at KPMG, we're sort of trying to deal with board levels and executives, etc. And the biggest thing is that everyone's talking about it, right? It's just the topic, and you've felt that probably during this conference. And so what's been amazing is that I love large language models, don't get me wrong, but I'm more of a predictive AI sort of person. And we've had those models for a while. But when I talk to executives about what predictive models can do for you, they are totally bought in because it has the word AI on it. So I'd say capture the moment, right? And most of the strategies that we do for boards start off as the AI strategy and very quickly get renamed to be the data and AI strategy, so that you can actually have 95% of your use cases, the ones that you've been wanting to put up for the last 10 years anyway. So capture the moment, get on board, get on the bus, right? And use it for your advantage. And the last thing I'd say is the use of enterprise systems. And this was a topic we sort of had last night. And it was around how do you, with the complete autonomy that you have in your world, how do you get on board and overcome what I showed you around the propensity not to do AI? And that is that platform providers and vendors are falling over themselves to talk to you about AI and develop it into their systems, right? And the reason for that is because we're at that point where it's not fully sorted who the leads are in any particular one area, so everyone's trying to beat to the lead, right? But what that means is that there's a lot of effort going into building it for you. And so the biggest miss you can have is that if you have access to AI through your enterprise systems and you're not using it. So Copilot, the product roadmap that we just talked about as well, all show you the easy wins that you can have in your organisation. So the last topic I wanted to cover before we got into audience participation, and I've got a couple of ideas for audience participation, but is around the changing workforce. And really, there's a number of things that are making us more disconnected as a group, and where we are losing corporate knowledge in our businesses. And so I thought I'd just throw this up to say that the tenure that people are staying in their job is reducing over time. In actual fact, the national average for job tenure at the moment is 3.3 years. Which has dropped significantly just over the last 5 years. And so it's not just an ageing workforce, it's also how we think of work and that transient nature. So you can get people that have broader experiences, usually amazing technical experiences, and can provide some diversity of thought. But when you're talking about how you operate your business and the management systems, there's got to be a bigger focus on having those guards and those management systems and not relying on people's experiences to run them. The next trend, I've said transitioning between industries, but it was really a number of topics altogether. And really it was around the fact that we do have a huge demand in infrastructure going forward. We cannot provide all of that. I don't know, for those that work in energy, whether half the people you work with are transport. 10 years ago, it was all the mining people. So it is a little bit of a, people go where the investments are going. So as soon as the reses come off, watch out. You'll get a lot of transport people. And so one of them is a changing industry. Another one is the amount of immigration. So our immigration policy is absolutely focused on bringing in skilled labour from overseas because we have a huge shortage of technical labour to deliver on the infrastructure pipeline. And so what you end up with again is that people have broad skills, but they don't understand your context and how you operate as a business. The last one I'd say is really around the work from home. And so this chart is off the Bureau of Statistics, and it shows you across all workers the changes in work from home, which obviously during COVID went up significantly. But I don't know if you see the headlines that says, probably 18 months ago, we did a CEO survey actually, where CEOs said, we want to kill this work from home thing. It was actually a very active push over the last 12 months, and Amazon did, pushed out policy, and lots of people did, right? And then I think it was only about 6 weeks ago that the AFR released an article saying the CEOs have been defeated. Work from home is here for a long time. But if you're really honest, and we saw this in the last election, was that we have been working from home already, to be honest, before COVID. So let's not, call it the massive change. But it's how we do think of our workplace. I'd say that the contributing factor for me is that we do think of ourselves in national practices. So you'll be on a Teams call more than you're in the room with your team because they might live in other states, as examples. And so if you think of graduates coming through trying to learn from our experienced people in the business, it just becomes a lot harder for that knowledge transfer to happen naturally. So where does that lead us to? I think talking about those issues and those macro trends hopefully prompted some thoughts anyway. But I thought I'd just take a picture of myself and say, what do we think our current role is and transitioning to our future role? And starting with team and that workforce, and by the way, the activity we're going to do focuses on capturing your knowledge and your expertise in estimating distances, but anyway, we'll get there, is around, at the moment, the Royal Melbourne example is a fantastic paper-based system, which is labour linear. So we're going to move from labour linear to being able to scale it in certain parts of our business without relying on another FTE in it. The other ones are around line of sight. So I talked about that, where I feel like the line of sight has gone to asset system performance, whereas we're really, every single time we get an improvement in a product, or we're better sensoring, or we're getting better feedback from our customers, it's that link to customers and to ESG requirements and all those multiple stakeholders. We're going to be a much bigger part of that in the future. Our decisions, and I think this may not go away as quickly as we want, but we do a lot of data wrangling. So if we get asked a question about what the right answer is, we spend half of our time just trying to get the data from the different sources together, filter it, censor data, and try and come up with the picture. And a lot of that censoring relies on the experience of our individuals. And so, the trend that we've seen, with products like Maximo, but also operational technology and enterprise systems, is really around overcoming that and always just getting better at the management of data. And then compliance is probably the first thing to go, not go, but the first thing to modernise, and that is that when you have a rule-based system, which compliance often is, so previous compliance activities, it could be authorised engineering organisations, it could be internal audit, it could be other things. Those sort of things often rely on a sampling approach, but they're often rule-based, and so when you talk about AI and the opportunity to automate, it's often in those areas that'll happen. So that pretty much ends, because I recognise that I'm between you leaving, but we're about to have a little bit of fun on it. And so I wanted to wrap up with your role, but I also wanted to get a photo. So I don't know, I didn't mention this to the photographer, by the way, but sorry, mate. But what I want to do is, I wanted to say that the opportunity for us to play a part in our business and what I've just covered hopefully tells you that our role is just even more important than ever. what 20 years ago we talked about at the MESA Association around how we're going to do, fleet management and facilities management, etc. Now we're talking about ESG, we're talking about enabling access to capital for our business, we're talking about a social licence to operate and the functional values that our assets provide. So I would say that journey will continue, and it's just an amazing time to be in this industry and the impact that we can have, because there's just so much to do. So that's my wrap up. What I do want though is I was inspired by an Ed Sheeran concert, and so I do want everyone to stand up, right? And everyone to stand up, right? All right. Delayed, right? And we're going to say, and I think we've got to get, can you, from this table over here, everyone on this side, you've got to go over here so it looks like there's more people here. Is that all right? Walk over, right? All right, and what we're going to say, what are we going to say? I'm excited by asset management. It's a little too long, isn't it? Okay. Maximo Live. Okay, good product placement. That's good. Okay, so ready? On the count of three, we're going to say Maximo Live. Okay, you ready? 1, 2, 3. Maximo Live. Okay, LinkedIn just got what they needed, so that's good. Oh yeah.
Take one without.
Oh sure. Okay, we're doing it again. So, like a rock star, you're meant to not take the first one because it wasn't loud enough. So, bigger. Come on, people. Ready? Maximo Live. Okay, cool. Hopefully that helps me get invited back in future years for IBM team. Okay, now we're going to do something a little fun. So, the topic is around capturing the knowledge of your team. And this isn't exactly what I mean when I say that, but it's actually a cute little exercise that builds on something that I did some study on, and that is around using Bayes' technique. So the idea of it is that what you're trying to do is not capture data, you're trying to make decisions with the state of knowledge you have in your business. And an example would be that if you manage aircraft, and you had a really difficult question around, a failure that was unexpected, the question is, what would you do next? What data would you go to find out about that? And really the answer is you're probably going to ring up the person who was part of the introduction into service of that aircraft, they were with the designers when they did it, and you're going to ask them their opinion, right? And so what that means is that the value that our trades and engineers and the people that we work with is just incredibly immense, because that is part of our state of knowledge, right? And so what I wanted to do was do a little exercise. So you're going to pull out your phones. You can do selfies if you want, but what I really need you to do is scan that QR code, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to do two things. We're going to measure two things. So I've called this new product that I came up with last night. I hope I'm not breaking any rules on the IBM side by... You're not going to no legal battles, okay, that's good. And I've called it Maximo Measure, right? So we're going to measure the distances by using your brain power into an app, and we're going to try and come up with a very accurate distance, eventually, of this screen, right? But first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to do a test run. So the first question you're going to have is the width of this wall. So if you see this wall, where the curtain is on the corner there, right to the other corner, or we could use this side as well. So where that curtain, the black curtain is, right through to that corner, I want you to first of all tell me, in metres, what you think that distance is. And while you do that, I'm going to try and get something up and running which has a high probability of failure. Okay, so once you've estimated the distance of that wall, then I want you to put in the distance for this screen. So the screen is from that black curtain to that black curtain. Now, when I was doing this earlier, because I haven't measured that distance, by the way, but when I was doing that earlier, I couldn't actually figure out whether it was longer or shorter from where I was standing. But anyway, but what I do know, so just before I go on, have you, okay. So what I do know is, has everyone put in those numbers, by the way? And have you pressed to submit? Right, so both of those now. So that's the screen and the wall and screen, sorry, in that order. Because I'm going to tell you the first one, right? The first one, and I feel like I'm on Top Gear. You know how they sort of really release it really slowly? So it starts with a 1, Then it's got an 8. So 18.36. All right, it's okay though, because what we're going to use is whether you're an underestimator or an overestimator. The reason we did 2 is because I'm going to use the first one as a control. So you might have said 15, and whatever you estimated the second one to be, I'm going to adjust it by the same amount. Okay? So I'm going to adjust your bias. But what I'm going to do to just show you what this is, and like I said, remember I said high propensity for failure here, but that's okay. So I'm going to screenshot your answer for the first one. So I said 18.36. All right, let me do this. Okay, I've just shared it. Hopefully it's going to work. This is your aggregate. This is your aggregate now. No, it's not going to work. That's all right. Oh, there it is. Okay. Your aggregate of all of your estimates gave a 95% confidence interval between 18.9 and 21.6. So I said 18.36. So given it's 95% confidence interval, that's not bad, but you're a bit off. So some retraining will happen, but that's okay. So that's for the wall, all right? I'm sorry, AV team, I'm going to now add another slide, right? So now what we're going to do is I'm now going to use your second answer adjusted for your bias to estimate the length of this screen, which I don't know. And then can I get the team while I start fiddling around to come up and start to measure this thing? Is that all right? All right, they're ready. Yeah? He knows the answer. Yeah, I knew the AV people were going to ruin this. They're no fun. Asset managers are fun. They're like... Right, I think I'm ready to go, so I'm going to show my answer that we got. I don't know if this is going to work. No, this is going to work. Okay, here we go. So for the screen, once it comes up, have you got the answer ready? Yep. Okay, well, hold off for a sec, right? Okay, so we had a 95% confidence interval that the width is between 16.2 and 19.9. What's this face doing? Oh, okay. What's the answer?
14.
14.1. Okay, this is terrible. Never, if you ever get asked to present at a conference, don't do this. We'll come up with a better system next year. But the point was really to say that, there is an opportunity, a fun way to do it, but it's really around capturing the state of knowledge of your team. I want to thank you so much for letting me talk as well. It's been an awesome event, and thank you to the event operators as well. But I'll hand back over to Simon. Thanks, mate.